Just for us. Happy anniversary.
What if the very heart and soul of Heartland, the one character who has carried us through love, loss, and triumph, is about to be ripped away forever? In a shocking and unexpected twist, the season 19 finale might deliver the most heartbreaking moment in the show's history, the tragic death of Amy Fleming. For nearly 2 decades, we've watched her grow, overcome unimaginable challenges, and shape the legacy of Heartland. But could this be the end of her journey? What happens when the guiding light of the series is suddenly extinguished? How will the Bartlett-Fleming family and fans move forward without her? The fate of Amy Fleming hangs by a thread, and as the final moments of season 19 unfold, one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. Brace yourself for a finale that will leave you stunned, speechless, and questioning everything you thought you knew about Heartland. The season started with a sense of optimism. Amy had just achieved a major breakthrough in her career, working with some of the most challenging horses she had ever encountered. The family was more united than ever, with everyone finding their own personal victories. Ty's memory continued to hang over them all, but Amy seemed to be finding a way to navigate life without him, growing stronger each day. But as the season unfolded, an eerie sense of unease crept into Heartland's small, unexplainable events that seemed insignificant at first, but soon painted a much darker picture. It started subtly odd disturbances around the ranch, fleeting moments of tension that could be dismissed as mere coincidences. Yet, beneath the surface, something was shifting. The once peaceful haven of Heartland felt like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment. Amy, the rock of the family, began to show signs of strain as new and dangerous challenges tested her like never before. Horses that once moved with grace became restless and unpredictable, as if sensing an unseen force. And within the family, cracks were beginning to form: unspoken fears, growing tensions, and a feeling that something truly devastating was just around the corner. Amy's intuition told her that something wasn't right, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Was it just stress, or was there something darker at play? Even with all of this, she remained focused, working tirelessly to keep Heartland running smoothly. She was determined to honor Ty's legacy, but the burden was beginning to weigh heavily on her shoulders. But it wasn't just the animals and ranch that seemed off. As Amy worked, she noticed more and more that the people around her were changing. Lou seemed distracted, Peter was acting distant, and even Jack had become unusually quiet, as if he too was feeling the pressure of the shifting family dynamics. And yet, Amy pushed forward, refusing to let anything get in her way. She was determined to hold it all together. But little did she know, something much more dangerous than daily struggles was lurking on the horizon. Then came the moment that would begin the countdown to the finale: a phone call in the middle of the night, urgent and unclear. Amy didn't recognize the voice on the other end, but the words sent a chill down her spine. "You need to come to the ranch now. Something's wrong. It's about Ty." Panic set in. She rushed out of bed and drove through the night, her mind racing with the possibilities. Was there an intruder on the ranch? Was someone trying to harm her family? Or worse, was there a threat to the legacy of Ty Borden that she couldn't protect? When Amy arrived, the ranch was eerily quiet. The horses were restless, and the barn door was ajar. It was clear that something had been disturbed. Inside, she found nothing but a single cryptic note pinned to the wall: "The past can't stay buried." Her heart sank. This message was more than just a warning. It was a harbinger of what was to come. Something was about to unfold that no one, not even Amy, could have prepared for. As the note burned a hole in her mind, Amy was left to wonder: was this a reminder of the past? A message from a time she thought was long behind her? Or was this the first sign that something much more sinister was at play? Could the unsettling shift in Heartland's energy be a warning of an unimaginable tragedy? Amy could feel it, an unshakable sense that something was slipping through her fingers. The questions swirled in her mind, but one thing was clear: she couldn't face this battle alone. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and the truth remained just out of reach. She would have to lean on those she loved before time ran out. The puzzle was forming, but the pieces were scattered, some holding secrets too dark to comprehend. And some were about to turn deadly. The peaceful world of Heartland was unraveling, and the show that fans had cherished for years was teetering on the edge of a transformation. Would she survive? As the days passed after the unsettling discovery in the barn, the tension at Heartland continued to grow. Amy's sleepless nights became more frequent, and her thoughts constantly returned to the cryptic message she had found. Who would want to send her such a threatening note? And why now? Despite the growing sense of unease, Amy did her best to keep things normal, working with the horses and trying to hold the family together. But with each passing day, the feeling of impending doom became harder to ignore. One morning, Amy received another call, this time from an unknown number. She hesitated, feeling the weight of dread pressing on her chest. When she picked up, the voice on the other end was distorted, as if coming through a voice changer. "Amy Fleming?" the voice said, cold and detached. "You think you've gotten away from the past, but it's coming for you. The things you've buried will rise again, and this time, there's no escaping it." The line went dead before Amy could respond, leaving an icy weight in her chest. A chill crept up her spine. What was this person threatening her with? And why did it feel so personal? No one in her life had given any sign of knowing anything about it, yet the unease gnawed at her. Was it a ghost from her past? A forgotten enemy lurking in the shadows? Or something far more sinister? Something she hadn't even begun to unravel? The rest of the day blurred into a restless haze. No matter where she went, Amy couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes tracking her every move. The ranch, her sanctuary, no longer felt like home. The wide open fields felt suffocating. The familiar walls seemed to close in on her. Every rustling branch, every creak of the stable sent her pulse racing. Was she imagining it, or was someone out there waiting? She wasn't the only one who sensed the shift. Lou had been watching her sister withdraw, watching the way Amy buried herself in work, avoiding questions, avoiding comfort. It wasn't like her. Jack saw it too. He'd watched Amy battle storms before: loss, heartbreak, hardship, but this was different. The fire in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by something he hadn't seen before: fear. And that terrified him more than anything. One evening, after another long day of searching for answers, Amy decided to take a walk by herself to clear her mind. She made her way down to the river, the place where she had always found peace and clarity. But tonight, even the familiar sound of rushing water couldn't calm her. It was then that she saw a shadowy figure standing on the opposite bank. For a moment, she thought it was just her mind playing tricks on her, but the figure didn't move. It was too still, too deliberate. Amy's heart raced as she squinted into the darkness. The figure stepped forward slowly, revealing itself, and she gasped when she recognized who it was. It was someone she thought she had lost forever, someone she had never expected to see again. The figure was none other than Caleb, Ty's old friend, and someone who had been out of the picture for a while. Amy had always trusted Caleb, but seeing him now, standing in the dark, felt wrong. He didn't say a word at first, just watched her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy with unspoken emotion. "I never thought I'd see you here again," Amy said, trying to steady her voice. "What's going on, Caleb? Why are you here?" Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. "Amy, there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it's time. They're coming for you, and they're coming for the ranch." Amy's breath caught in her throat. Who? Who's coming for us? Before Caleb could respond, the sound of tires screeching through the dirt road interrupted their conversation. Amy turned quickly, startled by the sudden noise. When she looked back at Caleb, he was gone, vanished into the night, as if he had never been there. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to piece together what had just happened. Had Caleb been trying to warn her? And if so, what exactly was he trying to protect her from? The message was clear, though there was a threat, and it was coming for her and for Heartland. The storm was no longer just a feeling in the air. It was real, and it was getting closer by the minute. The next morning, Amy sat down with Lo and Jack to try and make sense of everything. She told them about Caleb's warning and the unsettling phone call. Lo was immediately on edge, urging Amy to take the threat seriously. Jack, too, seemed unusually tense, as if the mention of danger had triggered something deep within him. "I don't like this," Jack said, his voice grave. "We've been through a lot together, but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind this, and fast." Amy knew Jack was right. There was no more time to waste. She couldn't ignore the warning any longer. Something big was coming, and it was threatening everything she held dear. As the family gathered together, they realized that the fate of Heartland was hanging in the balance, and they had no idea how far this danger would reach. One thing was certain, though if they didn't act fast, they might not have time to stop what was about to unfold. But even as they prepared to face whatever was out there, Amy couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The worst was yet to come. The storm was building, and no one could predict what would happen when it finally broke. Would Amy survive? Would Heartland survive? And who, if anyone, would be left standing when the dust settled? As Amy continued to dive deeper into the mystery surrounding her mother's past, the tension around Heartland only seemed to escalate. The cryptic warnings, unsettling encounters, and unexplained occurrences became more frequent, and Amy could no longer deny the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just the threat of someone from her mother's past closing in. It was something much darker, more dangerous, and far more personal. The more Amy learned, the clearer it became that her mother's involvement with Oliver Rhodes wasn't just a fleeting chapter in the family's history. It was the keystone that had kept the entire story intact for all these years. It had been Marion's choices that had inadvertently created the environment that allowed Rhodes to slip through the cracks of the law. Now, after years of silence, Rhodes was resurfacing, and he wasn't just interested in settling old scores, he was determined to finish what had been started. Amy's newfound understanding of the past sent a cold shiver down her spine. If Rhodes had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, then that moment had clearly arrived. But what was his endgame? Was he after Heartland itself, or was his focus solely on Amy? The situation became even more precarious when Amy discovered something even more disturbing, a connection between Rhodes and a series of land disputes from years ago involving Heartland and surrounding properties. In these old records, Amy found a pattern of legal battles, bribes, and veiled threats, all leading back to Rhodes's shadowy business dealings. Heartland had always been more than just a ranch. It had been a key part of a larger puzzle. And as much as Amy tried to ignore it, she could no longer pretend that she was merely caught in the crossfire. Heartland was at the heart of this struggle, and Rhodes was determined to take it back. Her suspicions were confirmed when one of the ranch's neighbors, a reclusive man named Albert Rhodes, Oliver's estranged brother, showed up at the gates of Heartland one afternoon. Albert had never been an active part of the family's ranching business, but his arrival was the first sign that something was coming to a head. His presence was unsettling, not just because of his eerie, quiet demeanor, but because of the way he seemed to know far too much about what was happening at Heartland. His cryptic warnings about the past sent Amy into a spiral, leading her to realize that this conflict ran far deeper than she had ever imagined. "You don't understand, Amy," Albert said, his voice low but filled with an edge of urgency. Your mother thought she could escape from it, but there's no escaping the past. Rhodes is coming for everything she built. And it's not just the land he wants, it's the legacy. It's you." Amy was stunned. Her heart raced as the weight of Albert's words settled in. She had thought she could protect her family, her home. But now, it felt as though everything was unraveling. She couldn't shake the feeling that Rhodes had been manipulating things all along, laying the groundwork for his return and playing a long game. The pieces were finally falling into place, but the puzzle was bigger than she could have imagined. The next few days were a blur. Every corner of Heartland felt different, tense, fragile, as though a single wrong move could set off an explosion. Amy was more cautious than ever, watching her back at every turn, aware that something was closing in on her, something she couldn't outrun. The horses seemed restless, even the ones that had always been calm and steady. Every time Amy entered the stables, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. It wasn't just paranoia. It was instinct. The danger was real. The most terrifying moment came when Amy was alone in the barn one night, trying to calm one of the more skittish horses, when a shadow crossed the doorway. Amy froze. A voice called out softly from the dark, "Amy." She whipped around, heart pounding, to find a figure standing just inside the barn. The moonlight illuminated the face, and Amy's breath caught in her throat. It was Caleb, but something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. His usual calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. Before she could speak, Caleb rushed toward her, grabbing her arms in desperation. "You have to listen to me," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not over. Rhodes, he's not done with you. He's going to destroy everything, starting with you." Amy was stunned. Caleb's urgency and fear were unlike anything she'd ever seen from him. The fact that he had come to her at this hour, knowing the risk of being caught, made it clear that something serious was going on. She tried to calm him down, to ask him what he meant, but Caleb was practically incoherent. Caleb broke off, glancing nervously toward the barn doors. "I can't explain it all right now, but you need to get out of here. Rhodes is planning something big, something that'll take everything from you. You have to leave. You're not safe here." Amy's mind raced as she processed Caleb's words. Everything they had been dealing with, the phone calls, the messages, the strange behavior from people around them, suddenly made sense. Rhodes wasn't just playing games. He was planning something far more dangerous, something that would completely destabilize Heartland. And it had everything to do with Amy. Before Amy could respond, Caleb backed away slowly, his eyes scanning the darkness. He turned and ran into the night, leaving Amy with more questions than answers. The next morning, Amy couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled deep within her. Something was coming, something inevitable. She couldn't keep running, and she couldn't fight this alone. There was a growing sense that, no matter what she did, she was trapped in the crosshairs of a powerful enemy. The pieces were all in place for a confrontation, one that would determine the fate of Heartland. But what if she couldn't stop it in time? What if the storm that was brewing wasn't something that could be weathered? What if, just like the past, it was too powerful to escape? Every decision she made from here on out could be the difference between saving everything she held dear or losing it all. The stakes had never been higher. As Amy looked out across the land that had been her home for so long, she realized that the real battle was just beginning. As the tension continued to mount, Amy realized that the time for hiding from the truth had long passed. Her world, which had always been grounded in the safety and familiarity of Heartland, was now on the brink of collapse. Every day brought new revelations, each one more terrifying than the last, and it became painfully clear that nothing was as it seemed. Amy's trust in the people around her, her family, her friends, even herself, was beginning to erode, and she was struggling to figure out where to turn. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but she had no choice but to keep moving forward. In the midst of all this chaos, Amy decided to confront the one person who had always been there for her, the person who might still hold the key to the answers she so desperately needed, Lou. They had been through thick and thin together, and if there was anyone who could help Amy make sense of everything, it was her sister. That evening, after another unsettling day spent trying to piece together the mystery of Oliver Rhodes and his sinister plans, Amy sat low down in the living room. The fire crackled in the hearth, but the warmth from the flames seemed to do little to ease the cold weight in the air. "I'm scared, Lo," Amy admitted, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound composed. "I don't know who I can trust anymore. I don't know what's real." Lou gave her a sympathetic look, her brow furrowing as she took Amy's hands in her own. "You don't have to go through this alone," Lou said gently. "We'll figure this out together. You know I've got your back no matter what." But Amy wasn't so sure anymore. The more she uncovered about Rhodes' connection to Heartland, the more she realized that the fight ahead wasn't just about protecting the ranch, it was about saving her own life. Rhodes had made it clear that Amy was at the center of this vendetta, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm that had been building was about to hit its peak. Despite Lo's reassurances, Amy's mind was plagued by doubt. What if the people she trusted the most were part of the reason this danger was so close? What if her own family was unknowingly wrapped up in the dark history that had led to Rhodes' return? "I found something," Amy said quietly, pulling a weathered folder from beneath the table. It was filled with old letters, legal documents, and photographs evidence she had gathered over the last few days. She spread the documents out across the table, and Lou's eyes scanned them with increasing alarm. "It's all here," Amy continued. "Every legal battle, every dirty deal. Rhodes wasn't just after the land, he was after control. He wanted everything, and he wasn't afraid to do whatever it took to get it." Lou's face turned pale as she flipped through the papers. "Amy, these aren't just old business disputes. These are threats. These are people who weren't just involved in property battles, they were trying to bury each other. This could ruin everything." Amy nodded, her heart heavy with the truth. The darkness that had been lurking in Heartland's past had not only resurfaced, it had taken root. And Amy now had to confront it head-on. "I can't protect Heartland alone, Lo. I can't even protect myself. If we don't do something, if we don't take action now, everything we've worked for could be lost." Lou met Amy's gaze, a mixture of concern and resolve in her eyes. "Then we do this together. We'll fight. We'll take back control." Amy wanted to believe her, but deep down, she knew that things were no longer simple. Rhodes wasn't just fighting for land, he was fighting for something much more dangerous, the power to break them. As the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, the stakes were growing higher, and the danger wasn't just lurking in the shadows anymore. It was at their doorstep. The next morning, Amy and Lou decided to take matters into their own hands. They contacted every ally they could think of: Caleb, Jack, even some of the older ranch hands who had worked with the Fleming family for decades. They knew the fight ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face it head-on. However, what they didn't expect was the chilling message that arrived shortly after making their decision. A package, unmarked with no return address, was left at the doorstep of the Heartland Ranch. It contained only one item: a photograph of Amy standing alone in front of the barn, a look of determination etched on her face. But what made the photo so unsettling was the addition of a message written on the back in bold black letters: "This is only the beginning." Amy's stomach dropped as she stared at the photo. Whoever had sent it clearly knew she was taking action, and they weren't backing down. In fact, it seemed like they were daring her to make a move. "We can't wait any longer," Amy said, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and resolve. "It's time to confront this head-on." No more running. No more hiding. Lou nodded, but her eyes were filled with worry. What if this isn't just about roads? What if there's something bigger at play? Amy didn't know what to think anymore. The truth had become so tangled in lies, so twisted by hidden agendas, that it was nearly impossible to separate the past from the present. But one thing was clear. Someone was willing to do anything to tear Heartland apart, and Amy was standing in the middle of it all.